The Dancing with Wisdom podcast.
Welcome to the Dancing with Wisdom podcast as we invite you to join us on this quest to make sense of life. Hi, my name is Sunil Raheja.
And I'm Elliott Frisby, and we are on part 4, stage 4 of the 4 vital questions.
That's
four
right.
Vital questions, which we find in chapter 8 of your book, Dancing with Wisdom.
Yes.
And I'm just going to jump straight there. Okay, question number 1 was be in. If I'm going to be a person I can live with, what kind of person will that be? We covered that. I say covered that. I mean, it was just we started. I mean, you can't cover any of this really in full detail unless we explore, which we invite you to do with us. Of course, question number 2 was relating. How do I relate with others, my family, my friends, and finding a healthy balance? 3, which we've just done, is doing, which was a lot more, Sunil, that was a lot deeper than I thought it was going to be. Such a simple question was not simple in the slightest.
Yes.
Okay, 4, leaving. All right, so I'm not really, so we'll need to cover this one in depth. Finally, when my life comes to an end, what do I want my legacy to be?
Yes.
Okay, so it sounds straightforward. I'm sure it's not. Question number 4.
In one sense it is, but in another sense it's big stuff. It's deep stuff about what do I want to be remembered for? How am I going to live in the light of eternity in the future? I mean, that's the big question that, my time here on earth is finite. How am I going to make the most of this finite time? And again, that was brought home to me in a big way on the 17th of March 2014 when a good friend of mine, Abhishek Banerjee, who my book Dancing with Wisdom is dedicated to, he died suddenly at the age of 32, and it was completely out of the blue. It rocked my world, but one of the big conclusions I came to was that this life matters and the way we live has consequences.
Was this a vital question for you prior to that experience?
Well, it's funny, isn't it? Because I mean, in the process of writing the book, I've distilled it down to 4 questions. I don't think I could have articulated it that way, but there is a sense of, what is the purpose of what I'm doing, and does what I do matter? And we live in a very secular worldview and culture that says this life is all there is. Live for today. Don't worry, think about the consequences. Just enjoy yourself, eat, drink, and be merry because tomorrow we die. And you think, well, if that's the case, then what's the point of anything, really?
Well, that suddenly goes into responsibility as well. That's not being responsible.
And we talked about that, yes.
Yeah. So my question is to you, do you have an answer for yourself? You don't have to share it, but do you know the answer to this for yourself? Or are you still searching?
No, well, I mean, it's funny. I've done some work in terms of life mission statements, and mine, I'm happy to share it, is because it's related to what I do, and I'm trusting this is for the rest of my life. But it's to live confidently and joyfully, anticipating eternity with excitement, while inspiring and equipping others to do the same. And I think that's the ultimate big picture view of life.
How long did it take you to get there? I mean, it's a relevant question because at the end of the day, is this something we go, right, I'm going to go away now and go, right, I've decided I was made the best donuts in the world. How? I
mean, this is related to the doing question, which we looked at in the last podcast. You experiment with life. You try different things. You look at things that resonate with you. You look at things that you're passionate about. And I did do some specific exercises during 2020 because, as it were, I finished my job with the NHS, and I've entered a new chapter in my life. And I really want to think, well, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? And I want to do things with the rest of my life that prepare me for the end of my life. And when I turned 40, I read a fascinating book. I'll tell you my age. At the time of this recording, I'm 55 and a half. Okay, don't forget the half bit. But when I turned 40, hit that classic middle age, they say 40. Thinking about what had I done with my life, what I achieved, comparing myself, unfortunately, to other people and thinking I haven't done as much as them. Hitting that little niggling thing. I came across a book which really encouraged me. It's a book by a guy called Gordon MacDonald called The Resilient Life. And in it, he's a runner, and he talks about the marathon runner and says the marathon runner aims to finish the marathon with a sprint. And then he looks at life in its fullness. And he says, and being someone who's a disciple of Christ, he says, when you read the Bible, you see that the majority of people in the Bible actually finish badly. But there are people who finish very well. And he says that people who God uses tend to be, not all of them, but a lot of them, in their 60s, 70s, 80s, even older. And this was the thing that was so encouraging to me. He said, like a marathon runner, we should pace our lives so our most productive and fruitful years are actually at the end. And which turns this world and its priorities on its head, because this world celebrates youth and 20-year-olds and all that kind of stuff. We say, no. Your productive years, most fruitful years, your most significant years should be in your 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. And then you go out like the marathon runner does with a sprint into eternity. And I thought, yes, this is how I want to live. And so, in fact, I'm only just beginning. I feel.
Who wrote that?
A guy called Gordon MacDonald.
How old was he when he wrote it?
Ooh, I suspect he's probably in his 70s.
His 70s.
I think.
So I think it's great. I think it's a lovely concept. I think it's a really healthy thing to think about as well. And I would like to do the same. Yeah. But it does make me think that you have to look at his past life and that as well. I don't know what his past is. Would it be better to have a consistency throughout your life?
Well, I think the reality is all of us have good, bad, and ugly to our lives. All of us have done things that we're proud of, stuff we're not being proud of, we're maybe ashamed or embarrassed by. This in a sense touches on the area of forgiveness that we talked about in a previous podcast. Is that if I know that I'm truly loved and accepted by the creator of the universe, and I know that he accepts me not on the basis of what I do, but on the basis of the love that God has for me in Christ, that gives incredible confidence. Because some days I'm doing well, some days I'm doing badly. But that doesn't matter. What matters is that my elder brother, Jesus Christ, has died on the cross for me and says to God, don't look at Sunil's record because it's very patchy. Look at my record that is perfect, and accept Sunil on the basis of what Jesus has done. Now that's exciting. That means that I can actually live with confidence and joy because I'm not looking at my performance. If you like, it's all an overflow of what God has done for me. I cannot outgive God. God has already done everything for me. So the legacy that I want to leave, huge one, is, as I said at the beginning, I want to inspire and equip others to live with excitement about eternity, because that's what I want to be excited about, because the real living hasn't started. This is the warm-up stage for the real living that's to come.
So how important is this question, or should this question be, to everybody on a day-to-day life?
Oh, hugely important, because what I haven't said, and is that we can live with a plan, but you can, you use the word curveball. You can get curveballs at any time, anyway. My friend Bunty died at the age of 32. None of us in our wildest dreams could imagine that was going to happen. And so God can take our life at any moment. So that's important. It's important to have plans and ideas about what we're going to do in the future, but we have to hold on to it lightly because there is so much that's out of our control. And, we're discovering that in our world, that's so confusing, complex, chaotic, and it was like that before COVID. It's even more so after COVID, like that.
It's interesting because when you say, what legacy are you going to leave behind? I think a lot of people are like, well, I want to leave a nice house.
Oh, yes, that's right.
I want to leave a nice house which can be passed down to my future generations, who will pass it down to them, and then it will all look like Downton Abbey.
That's right.
But I think, as always with wisdom, the wisdom is really leaving something more deeper, something more spiritual behind.
Exactly.
Because I'd like to think that one day, a long time from now, when I'm gone from this sort of earthly place, that my children might go, actually, do you know what? I'm in this situation. I remember Dad or Daddy thinking this, saying this, and do you know what? Yeah, I'm glad I remembered that.
That's
and then
right.
There's little wise words.
So exactly.
There's wise words there. But I'll be honest with you, I don't know if this is is this a shallow opinion or not. I would love to be able to financially be able to leave them
Well, of course,
something as
yeah.
well. I mean,
Yeah,
is
no,
that
no. I mean, that's not wrong. I mean, we leave, we build on previous generations, and I mean, absolutely, we leave things for our children. But the problem is, I think, in our society and culture, is that's all we think about. Okay. So I'm not saying, of course, you want to support and help your children and grandchildren and things like that. Absolutely, I'm not knocking that one bit. But what I'm saying is that all you're leaving, just a few possessions and some money. I mean, Bill Gates, take Bill Gates. I think Bill and Melinda Gates are fascinating. Bill and Melinda Gates, I've got 3 children, and they did a TED talk on this, and I watched it. It was fascinating. They're going to leave $10 million, sorry, to each of their 3 children. Now, to you and me, that sounds a lot of money, $10 million. But they're so wealthy that is only 0.3% of their wealth. The 99.7%, they're actually in the process of giving away. And the other big thing about it is, so there's that side of it. They're thinking about how they can use what they have to serve others, and that's the legacy they're leaving. And the other big thing to say is the biggest legacy is the character you leave, because you give money to a person who's not equipped to handle it, then they can easily squander and waste it. You have to have the emotional maturity and wherewithal to handle that. That's why you have that classic thing, about people who win the lottery and who, get millions of pounds or dollars from the lottery. And it all sounds so glamorous, wonderful. What you don't hear so much about is the fact that those people who get so much money, because they haven't got the emotional maturity to handle it, end up quickly losing it all. And a significant number actually get up in a worse state because they go into huge financial debt. So that's actually become a huge curse upon them rather than any kind of benefit at all, because now they're minus several million, And I've even talked about what that does to your relationships, because suddenly you become very wealthy and everybody wants to be your friend, and you don't know whether they want to be your friend because of all the money you've got or because they genuinely care about you.
Yeah, very true. Very true. So I
very
want to go back to
complex.
the initial question, which is finally, when my life comes to an end, what do I want my legacy to be?
Yes.
Okay, so where do people... So, all right, we're saying that it's very important to acknowledge and consider that question.
Yeah.
So how do you start?
I think it starts off with relationships, okay? Because, and this I think is one of the, is that what is actually going to survive in this world, okay? Is everything ultimately is going to go. We're in a studio at the moment, looks nice, looks great, looks pretty, but ultimately it's not going to survive. Ultimately it's going to decay. These bodies that we've got, these healthy, strong guys that we are, we're a real match.
Yeah.
These amazing specimens of health and wellness.
Go back a few years and you may...
I'm not going to make it, okay? Give us 100 years and we'll definitely be, what's the word, worm manure or something like that? Is that what we're going to be? But no. But
it's such an uplifting...
Yeah, no. But be realistic. But what is it? Is the relationships. That's what's going to last. Relationships are what last. One of my favorite things that Jesus says in Luke chapter 16, he talks about this manager who's got this master who's got a manager who's a bit crooked, really, and he basically says, I'm going to get rid of this guy because he's not really doing his job properly. What the manager does, which is very clever, is he goes to people who owe his master money and says, you owe my master, say 6 bushels of wheat. Here's the receipt. Cross it out and make it 3. He goes to another person. You owe my master 100 gallons of olive oil. Here's the receipt. Cross it out and make it 50. And what Jesus says is the master commended the manager, because although what he did was wrong, he was thinking shrewdly. He was thinking about the fact, I'm going to lose my job, and I don't know what to do about if I lose my job, where I'm going to get another. So let me make friends with people who can help me when I no longer have my job. So he used his resources to make friends. And what Jesus says, he says, the people of this world are more shrewd when dealing with their kind than people of the light. Then he says, use worldly wealth to win yourself friends, So when it's gone, you'll be welcomed into eternal dwellings. Now, the point he's making, my understanding of this is you and I are going to die. And we joke about it and we don't want to talk about it. But the truth is we're going to die. I mean, the latest statistic is 100% death rate, okay? You thought COVID was bad? Guaranteed. If you survive COVID, you'll definitely die. Okay, that's 100%. And no vaccine is going to protect you, okay? Nothing. You are going to die. Start thinking, well, where are your investments? Going back to this issue about legacy. Investments in this life only last for a few years. And, you hand it over to your kids. Who's going to say, this is the thing that Solomon struggled with in Ecclesiastes. You give the money to the next generation. How do you know they're not going to squander it and waste it all? You've got no control of that. So he says, but if you invest yourself in other people for the life to come, then this is one of the things that excites me about Scripture. Is when you read the Bible, what you realize is that death is not the end. There is a continuation. So, Elliott, you and I, in 3,000 years' time, can have a chat and say, Elliott, do you remember that time when we went down to Chandersford and we did those conversations? Do you remember that fun that we had? And, it'd be a bit like talking about, in November, we did the podcast, didn't we? Not the podcast, we did the audiobook. We recorded the audiobook that goes with Dancing with Wisdom. And we'll say, do you remember we did the audiobook in November? And we've got a shared memory. Well, in 3,000 years' time, we will have a shared memory about life here on earth, the things we talked about and the things and that's what's so exciting. And what the Bible talks about the future is a world full of people of every tribe, nation, culture, language. You and I can hang out with Abraham and have a chat with Abraham about what it was like to leave the Ur of the Chaldeans, for example, and trek off to a new land that God was going to show him. I mean, this is eternity we're talking about. I mean, it's just mind-blowing. That's something really worth getting excited about.
You see, because what I'll be doing in 3,000 years, I'll be talking to saying, is there a way of doing another podcast while we're here? No, I get what you're saying. And it's an uplifting thought as well, and which is lovely. But we're talking,
about legacy.
About legacy,
yes.
And so the process of what people should do right now. What should they do right now to start considering what their legacy is going to be, looking at it making a wise decision to do that and a positive way. What can they do?
Wow. Okay. So if you have no relationship with God and God's completely out of the picture for you, I think the first step is to start thinking about the question of God. Thinking, what are you living for? Because, the opposite, I think, is incredibly depressing. The opposite is that we live here 80 years if we're lucky, and then we die, and then that's it. And all the good that I do, anything I've done, will be forgotten.
Can I jump in there?
Please.
Thank you. I've heard someone say before that they find God in the eyes of their children.
Right.
I've heard that.
Yes.
And I get it.
Well, it's the innocence, the purity.
Yeah. This is just pure joy, pure beauty. This was creation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I see God within my children's eyes. So that if people were thinking like that, they could then argue that by serving their children, that's the right thing to do.
But aren't you just looking? But then isn't the response to that? Well, are you going to ask your 3-year-old child about how you handle that difficult client at work? Where's your 3-year-old child? I mean, the child. There's an aspect.
Well, we've seen that Barbie advert, and
there's an aspect of children that is sweet and beautiful. I mean, I don't deny that, but you're only looking at one aspect. It's like a diamond. You're looking at one aspect of God. You remember, I gave you that definition of God. I just wanted to bring it up. It's well worth memorizing if I can find it. Yeah, 19th century definition by Charles Hodde. God is a spirit, infinite, eternal, and unchangeable in his being, wisdom, power, holiness, justice, goodness, and truth. Okay?
Okay.
So you're seeing something of that goodness, okay? You're seeing something of the purity of God in a little baby, okay? But how can that baby's not got? You're seeing one aspect of the diamond. That's all you're seeing. How about having the whole diamond rather than just one aspect?
Okay, so let's go back then. So you said starting off by finding that relationship with God. Now the thing is, I don't think we can actually say that, because I think that's a big thing to say. That's people won't know how to solve it. I think we need to start simpler. I mean, if we ultimately get there, which is the walking to dancing, for example. Ultimately get there. I think it needs to start smaller. So once again, I'm thinking, could it be solitude, meditation, prayer, writing things down? What would it be?
Yeah, I mean, it's lots of things. I think it is certainly. I mean, I do touch it. It's seeing aspects of the infinite and transcendent in the world around us. So you see something like that in a beautiful baby, in a beautiful child. You see that, but you see that also in creation. You go to the Grand Canyon. You go to Niagara Falls. You go to the White Cliffs of Dover. You see that in an amazing variety of creatures and animals on this earth. You see, the key thing is follow the awe and wonder. I think that's the key thing. Keep following the awe and wonder and see where that leads you.
Okay, so I'm just going to go back one more time. So when my life comes to an end, what do I want my legacy to be?
Yes.
So I think that you can't answer that question until you've done the other 3 points.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's what I'm getting from this. So that's why I was... Sorry, I really want to... I'm holding back a cough here, excuse me.
Yeah.
But basically, you can't just go, right, I'm going to look at question 4.
No.
Because that's what I'm trying to... That's why I was asking these questions.
Yeah.
I was trying to explore if you can just go in and do it.
No.
And I don't think you can. I think you do need to look at being. I do think you need to look at relating, and I think you need to look at doing. And it's at that point you will suddenly start getting an idea of what your legacy will be.
It's fascinating because we are standing on the shoulders of giants who have gone before us, who have made sacrifices. Okay. That enable us to enjoy the freedom and the opportunities that we do. I mean, it's a small, big example. There are loads of examples. People who have fought through world wars for us to have the freedom that we enjoy. People who have, worked on technology, to enable podcasts to happen. Steve Jobs has died, but he's left an incredible legacy in terms of the iPod, iPhones and technology there. I think of somebody like, Abraham Lincoln, who was assassinated in 1865. At a time when America was as divided as Iraq was, if you think about, the Second Gulf War. And he was the ability to unite a nation to make the United States of America. And, his famous line was, somebody said to him, shouldn't we kill our enemies? And he said, the best way to kill my enemy is to make him my friend. And even though he was assassinated in 1865, he was able to, in a sense, as it were, mold the culture of society to make a United States. And fascinating, America's got lots of faults, and we certainly know about that at the moment. But what I find fascinating... As do we in other places around the world,
everywhere
around the world. But what I found fascinating is that Martin Luther King, when he started his civil rights march in the late 60s, he started from the Lincoln Memorial, basically saying, to give equality for black people in America, I'm finishing off what Lincoln started 100 years ago. So those are all legacies. See, we're building on those legacies of the past. And so, the baton has been passed on to us. We have the privilege of being alive at this point in history. We don't know how much longer we will be. But let's live every day remembering that we have responsibility, that our life has consequences. Let's live that with confidence and joy as people who know they are loved, who know where they're coming from and where they're going, who have their identity sorted out, who have their relationship sorted out, who are doing the things that God has called them to do, so we can make a difference in this world where there is so much sadness and darkness.
Well, I think that's a great place to finish, and also on the Martin Luther King, who's completely awesome. So a really lovely way to finish there. So let's do a quick 45-second roundup.
Wow. So
I've taken off 15 seconds for you. Go.
Okay, legacy in terms of what is my legacy going to be? How am I going to leave this earth? It's got to be founded on being, doing, and relating. But it's exciting because it's living in the light of eternity, that the real living hasn't begun. But the choices and decisions I make are somehow going to explode in an amazing way in the life to come. Can I just close with a quote from a guy from Chris Wright?
Please.
He's written it in a book called The God I Don't Understand. And I end the chapter 8, with this. He says, "The new creation will start with the unimaginable reservoir of all that human civilization has accomplished in the old creation." This is the old creation. "But purged, cleansed, disinfected, sanctified, and blessed. Think of the prospect. All human language, literature, art, music, science, business, sport, technological achievement, actual and potential, all available to us. All of it with the poison of evil and sin sucked out of it forever. Whatever it may be like, we can rest assured that for those who are in Christ, anything that has enriched and blessed us in this life will not be lost, but infinitely enhanced in the resurrection. And anything that we have not been able to enjoy in this life because of disability, disease, or premature death, or simply through the natural limitation of time and space, will be amply be restored or compensated for in resurrected life. And so how do we live? We are to live as people who not only have a future, but know the future we have and go out and live in the light of that future in preparation for it and characterized by its values."
Well, a great way to finish.
Yeah.
I can't believe you took more than 45 seconds. You'd be ashamed of yourself. But what a great way to finish. I'm glad you did it.
Yeah. And it hasn't finished. It's going on forever.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's hear your thoughts. If you're on YouTube, do leave a comment, subscribe, give it a thumbs up so we can share it with your friends. The same with the podcast as well. Please do leave a nice review and share it with your friends so they can join us on our quest of dancing with wisdom. You can get hold of Sunil directly by...
At drsunil.com, and our admin will deal with requests from there.
drsunil.com, and you can get hold of me, Elliott, Frisby, at elliott@monkeynut.uk.com, or get me on the Monkey Nut Audiobooks, Instagram or Facebook. So Sunil, pleasure as always.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Dancing with Wisdom podcast, presented by Sunil Raheja and Elliott Frisby. For details on the Dancing with Wisdom book and its accompanying workbook, please visit drsunil.com. If you know someone who would enjoy this podcast, then please share it, give it a thumbs up on YouTube, and help it to grow by giving it a nice review. Life's challenges can diminish, define, or develop you. Which one will it be? Make sure you hunger for the wise one. The choice is yours.